All right, fantastic. Let's get started. Today we will do your oral presentations. Before we do that, I'll do this stuff covered up here by roster. Let's take a look. It'll be a surprise to everyone. I'll talk a little bit about the conclusion framework we worked on yesterday. I'll review the written assignment that you have due next week. I'll do that really quickly. We'll get that out of the way. And then I'll come back and review the conclusion framework that you will use in your presentations tonight. We will do those presentations. We will critique them based on the conclusion framework that we talked about last week. We'll go through maybe, 8 or so people, and then I will add some more stuff. You get the idea of the conclusion framework at the first 8 or so. Just give us good practice. Give us a chance to talk about using good body language, using good eye contact with these presentations. I've got a couple of group exercises that I will take everyone through. It's going to be a little bit challenging because of this chair situation. You'll just have to be flexible and be patient with me. And then that's it. Towards the end of the class, or actually at the end of the class, we'll go through a quick process where I'll ask you to form teams for an in-class assignment that we'll do next week. That'll just give you a head start to know who you're going to be working with next week and how you can divvy up a little bit of the work and who has to bring a laptop. There won't be anything that you really need to work on too much between now and next week, but it just might be helpful if you think about it for a minute. And I'll go over that at the end of class. So, as promised, I will go through that stuff. I want to start with the written conclusion framework stuff. So the assignment that's due next week, recall I went over this framework. I recommend it will just jump out at me with clarity as to what you're trying to say. It will center around one primary conclusion, and it will have a few subheadings where you will explore and support that conclusion. I would recommend you start your process this way. You first think about what is the one primary thing you want to say, what is this conclusion, and you'll put this up in your thesis paragraph with a few words of context. Then you'll think about how you can explore those conclusions and how those translate into 2 or 3 subheadings. Come up with subheadings that are in parallel structure. Within those subheadings, I would then construct a topic sentence for each of those little paragraphs. And then you're pretty much done. All you need to do is explain it a little bit more. So once you've got your thesis, your subheadings, your topic sentence, you've got the outline of what you need to do, and then just explore it a little bit more, give me a little bit more depth. And I mentioned that the clarity is just going to jump out at me. I'm going to read the title, I'm going to find the thesis statement very quickly, I'm going to see your subheadings, and I'm going to know exactly what you're talking about, and then as I want to read more, I can. And that's the way it should work for a written report you submit to management or someone in a different department. The clarity should be abundant. It should just jump out at your audience, and as your audience needs to read more, they can. I mentioned that this structure is an exercise in using your own original thinking, how you can take multiple things or how you can take a complex subject and break it down to very clear, simple terms. And I talked at length that I want it to be your original work, your original writing. I belabored that point that I found it sometimes easy for students to fall victim to using or resorting to plagiarism for this. If you have any questions about that, please contact me, please ask me. I just don't want anyone to make that mistake because it gets a little difficult here at Rutgers. Again, I never ever belabored this point before, but I've seen it happen a lot, so I just want to remind everyone of that. This is an opportunity for you to use your original thinking, even if you reference other materials. Any questions on that? Okay, so let's review the conclusion framework that we talked about last week for your actual presentations. Let me turn this off. So again, you're going to have one clear conclusion that you're trying to make to your audience. If you're standing up here and can't tell what your clear conclusion is, or if your audience doesn't know what your clear conclusion is, they're going to be confused. It's going to be harder to follow your story. They might wonder why they're paying you an MBA salary when you're just listing data and giving it to them. They want to hear what the important takeaway is. We mentioned some ways for you to make that clear verbally, such as saying, the conclusion is, the interpretation is, the thing I want you to take away from this is. We also mentioned some ways you can do that non-verbally, such as pausing before or after the conclusion, changing the rate of speech, shift in movement. You might be standing over here, giving us some background, giving us some data. Then when you really accent the conclusion, you may walk to the center, talk a little bit more slowly. What else did we mention? Forgetting anything? If you panic and you draw a blank, and you can't think of what to say, just breathe, take it easy. I think that's it. Yeah, we talked about the audience attention retention curve. Your speeches will be brief tonight, 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes. So initially, when you stand up and start talking, you have our attention. We're engaged. As you start talking a little bit more, we may drift off a little bit, hopefully not too much over the course of 1 or 2 minutes. But that initial part, when you have the audience's focus, is a good chance to explain your conclusion, explain some context, use that tension as leverage to discuss important points. Towards the end of your presentation, it will be clear to us that you are summing up, coming to an end. We also are engaged at that point, typically more than during the rest of your presentation. That's also a good opportunity to ingrain some of the important points. Any questions on that? Okay. One thing that was on our outline, but I forgot to mention, is I want to talk a little bit about anxiety management before we start. How we might get nervous when we make a presentation, and how we deal with that. So, anxiety is common. I feel a little nervous right now, as a matter of fact, because I've been running around. It's been a crazy day, and wasn't sure if I could have all the moving parts together, so I'm just a little bit more heightened. Does anyone else get nervous when they make a presentation? Everyone. Just about everyone. Understandable. When people who take surveys, pollsters, ask people what their greatest fear is, most of the time, not most of the time, the highest percentage thing that people say is public speaking. So public speaking is commonly rated as the #1 fear that people have. Does anyone know what the #2 fear might be? Death. Yes, death is commonly the #2 fear. So #1, public speaking. Dying is #2. So why do we get nervous like this?
We think we're going to die.
we hope we're going to die because we would rather die than give the speech, right? Come on.
Maybe when we think about it in our head about how it's going to go, when we actually get out there, it's, you feel that it's all happening and, you kind of just lose track of what you were actually saying and, how confident you were before you got there.
Okay, so you lose your confidence because the moment is different than you imagined?
Right.
Sure. Karen.
I think when you're trying to prepare, it's more like one-on-one where you kind of say by yourself.
All of a sudden,
All of a sudden,
all these
you
people.
gotta present in front of like 20, 30 people, it becomes a bit intimidating. So that's the thing.
Okay. Okay. Yes. What else? Go on. Yes.
I think public,
Seth,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yes.
Public speaking like a poison, slow poison. It's just you die slowly. So I guess that is the
You what? You die slowly?
Slowly. Death is instantaneous.
Okay, it's like you'd rather die quickly than get on. Just make it fast, please. So, Carrie, all these people that are watching you, 20 or 30, rather than just you looking in the mirror, what are they doing that's making you nervous?
I think they're all eyes on you.
Yes,
All eyes
okay.
on you.
All eyes are on you, Arpit.
Everybody, you think that everybody's critiquing you on what you did, so you start second guessing yourself.
Yes, they are critiquing you. Judgment is what we fear. We fear being judged socially, and we fear being judged professionally. We think they're evaluating whether or not they might want to hire you, whether or not they might want to hang out with you. And to an extent, they are. It's true. All right, so we get nervous. We fear no one's going to want to be our friend, no one's going to want to give us a job, everyone's going to think we don't have skills as an MBA student. This runs through your head, and this is important stuff. So how do we deal with that? What sort of techniques can we use to manage that anxiety? Yes?
Remember just to breathe, breathing before you're saying it.
Yes. Breathe, breathe. All right, slow that adrenaline down, that fight or flight reaction. All right, we have this fight or flight reaction because our livelihood, our social well-being is on the line, and we think it's a life or death confrontation. So our heart starts beating, so we can breathe to slow that down. Matthew?
Just realize every year is not the same year. You know, like we're all equivalent, so much better together. You know? So no one's here to like judge you or look down on you.
Okay,
But it should
yeah.
at least.
They are our friends, and they might even want us to give a good presentation. Even if they're not our friends, they want us to have something valuable to offer. They're listening to us, they're devoting our time, so they hope we have an important conclusion, important takeaway that's going to make it worthwhile for them. Yes?
And life is long enough for us to make certain mistakes. It doesn't matter.
Yes, yes. Life is long enough. I can make a few mistakes and I can recover. Good. Other strategies, Amol?
Practice.
Practice. You will do what you're trained to do. That's what always goes through my head as an actor. All right, you get nervous, you'll do what you practice. You most likely do the thing you trained yourself to do. Mike?
Or just like practice a basic know your material. I think that will help you at least come over some anxiety as long as you have strong knowledge of the material.
Of course, practice, know the material. Alicia?
I kind of go with that is like just being confident. When you act confident, people tend to believe you more.
Fake it till you make it. We'll do an eye contact exercise later where you look confident, and we might find that that makes you feel more confident. Was there someone over here? Yes, Kevin.
You just have to have that mental thing. I mean, you know, if you've done it before, you got to do it again. You just have to have that mental focus, and you can focus mentally. You won't break down.
Okay, mental focus, mental toughness. Like an athlete, I will not let myself slip up. All right, this is the Olympics. I have to do it right. All right, okay. Those are all good strategies. One I recommend above all is try to think about the value you have to offer to the audience. And make the presentation about your audience and not about you. So you're up here with an important conclusion. You're going to give this valuable information to the audience. You're going to explain something. You're going to convince the audience of something. You're going to calm the audience down. That is something valuable that you have to offer. And you can think about doing that and trying to accomplish that rather than what's going on with you. And a couple things happen when you make the presentation about your audience and not about you. One, you're so focused on trying to accomplish that thing for the audience, you have less time to get nervous yourself. So you're trying to think about your slides and how they're translating that value, giving that information to your audience. You're not so worried about what's going on with your nervousness. Second thing that I think happens when you think about the audience value is you realize that it is about the audience. A couple of you mentioned this. You are not here just to judge each other. You are here to benefit from this presentation. So your audience is not judging you on whether or not you get every single word right, whether or not you move perfectly, whether or not you get the slides in the perfect click rate order. It actually is about that thing you're trying to teach your audience, that thing you're trying to persuade your audience of. It truly is about that thing of value that you have to offer. So I suggest you think about that valuable thing and how you can best translate it to the audience. That is the strategy that I use. I often get nervous. I present in front of a lot of different types of people who don't know me, people who are judging me. Is this guy worth our time? Is he worth this high consulting fee that we're paying him? I'd rather just go back to work. So I literally try to think about helping people. So I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you something valuable, and that decreases my nervous anxiety. Any questions? Okay, good. So let's keep the presentations moving fast. Shoot for 1 minute. If you have to go to 2 minutes, fine. And let's just try not to keep a waiting period between first presenter and second presenter. But as you listen to the presenters, again, think of some comments you might have for that person along the conclusion framework, along with the conclusion framework type of stuff. All right, so who wants to go first? Okay, Jim, go first. Who wants to go second? Matthew, go second. And third is Shinfu, and we'll figure it out after that. Is that all right? Yeah, sure.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you all about the movie Forrest Gump, and in particular, why everyone in this room should watch Forrest Gump. Now, you need to watch this movie because it blends all the elements of a great story into one movie, all through the eyes of a sympathetic and unique character. While many great films do one thing particularly well, this film has a love story, this film has an underdog story, and this film portrays many important historical events of the 20th century. Now, and it's rare that a movie gets all these three stories right. Forrest Gump makes us forget that we're actually watching a movie and brings us on a journey through the telling of his life story. Now, the first important element of this movie is the love story between Forrest and Jenny. They have a long history. They first meet in their first day of school on the bus, and they become great friends throughout high school and growing up, and they eventually marry later in life. Now, the great thing about this part of the movie is that Jenny is always eluding Forrest, and they're always separated by their own life's past, but in the end, they always come back together. And that's the most important element, I think, to this film. The second element that makes this film great is that Forrest is a true underdog. When we first meet him as a child, he can't walk and he has to use leg braces, and it's also apparent that he's not as bright as some of his peers. By the time he's in college, he's a star running back for the University of Alabama. Then, after college, he goes to Vietnam and saves a bunch of his platoon members during an ambush. Once he returns from Vietnam, he starts a successful shrimping business, even though initially he's not very successful in the beginning. He runs across the country for 3 years, and he becomes a world champion ping pong player. The third element of this film is that it's great at portraying historical events. Elvis Presley teaches Forrest how to dance. Forrest is there for the desegregation of the University of Alabama. He goes to Vietnam after college, and he even speaks at an anti-war rally in Washington, D.C. Now, while everyone has their favorite type of film, Forrest Gump has something for everyone. It's got a love story, it's got an underdog story, and it's great at portraying historical events. So, in conclusion, everyone should go home and watch Forrest Gump.
Good. Awesome, Jim. Comments for Jim about the conclusion, the takeaway, how to frame that? Lee?
I thought he did a really good job. He started off, I knew exactly what he wanted me to take away. Everybody should watch Forrest Gump. He told me why, the elements of the film. And then, well, he told me, he had something to tell me, he told me. He gave me the examples, and he told me again at the end, in case I wandered off into, oh, a love story, or oh, he couldn't walk. He said, again, go watch Forrest Gump.
Excellent.
I probably did a pretty good job on not looking at the paper so much, trying to make an effort to look up and look around the audience a little bit.
Yeah, you did. You made a good effort. Were you reading that word for word?
No, I bolded the subheadings, and I kind of read after that, but not.
Okay, good. You were looking at the audience. I feel like we could make a lot of progress with stronger eye contact.
Okay.
It's like you were looking at us, but you weren't looking at us. You were looking, but you weren't seeing.
Yeah.
Okay. So more sustained eye contact, and we may have you jump up again after we do an eye contact exercise. Okay. Other comments?
Oh, I thought
Yes.
you.
Sorry.
Yeah. I thought your pacing was really like your momentum. I find that a very difficult thing to control, and you were really good. I understood every word you said, and I could follow along.
thought that was a good, steady pace. I would have enjoyed a little more vocal variety, especially when you were getting to this is the important part of this subsection. I got a little lost because there were so many words in the details. I feel like I liked the pace, but I feel like a little variety would have helped me follow it a little bit more. Okay, good. Good.
Last point.
Yes.
Just wondering, you are perfectly fine, but I would like to appreciate him for like taking it on first. Like nobody raised their hand and
Yes. Okay. Excellent. All right.
we can see the resolution.
Alright, I'm going to be talking about electronic cigarettes. The use of electronic cigarettes is a safer alternative to smoking traditional cigarettes. The vapor produced by electronic cigarettes has no tar, primarily composed of water, and they have been proven to be an effective tool for quitting smoking traditional cigarettes. They're safer than traditional cigarettes because there's no fire, there's no harmful chemicals. The ingredients are all FDA-approved food additives, propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, and natural flavorings. Obviously, there's nicotine in there, but you know that's what you're going for. So, due to the fact that there's no tar and in essence there's no fire, you're not burning anything, the stress on your lungs is much less. And so you don't diminish your lung capacity. You don't have your lungs don't turn black. There's no harmful byproducts. So for secondhand smoke inhalation, things like that, you're primarily exhaling water vapor. If you've ever been to a concert and seen a fog machine, it's very similar to it basically is the fog coming out of the fog machine. It's just got flavoring and nicotine content. When you burn a traditional cigarette, the burning will destroy the hydrocarbons, and it can create harmful byproducts like carbon monoxide. There's no carbon monoxide in e-cigarettes. And they've been proven to be effective for quitting smoking. You can gradually reduce the nicotine content, and you always know how much nicotine is in your e-cigarette. So, for example, someone who is wants to quit can start with a 12 milligram, and then work their way down to a 6, and work their way down to a 3. It's more effective than patches and gum and things like that because you're still smoking, you still have that mental, that physical fixation, and eventually you can reduce it down to 0 milligrams and just do it for flavor. So in conclusion, electronic cigarettes are safer than traditional cigarettes, and they're an effective way to quit smoking.
Did you say that the electronic cigarettes are safer and a better, or what did you start by saying? That I'm just going to tell you about electronic cigarettes?
The use of I kind of was just like prefacing what the topic was going to be. I didn't mean to put them in the like.
Oh no, okay.
That wasn't part of the
yeah,
sentence.
okay. So you did. So you said, I'm just going to give you some information about electronic cigarettes, and by the time you got to the end, you said, in conclusion, they're safer and a good way to quit.
So the opening sentence, or I should have, like what I meant to be the opening sentence, was the use of electronic cigarettes is a safer alternative to smoking traditional cigarettes that they produce as no tar, it's primarily water, and contains no harmful byproducts, and that they have been proven to be effective tool. I went up there and was like, I'm going to be talking about electronic cigarettes, but that was not supposed to be part of it. I kind of messed up. You know?
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Yeah. So that's my comment on the conclusion. I first thought it was just an informational about electronic cigarettes. So if it's just information, fine. I would have recommended, here are the 3 things I'm going to tell you about electronic cigarettes. So by the end of the 60 seconds, you're going to know this, this, and this, rather than I'm just going to talk indefinitely.
The conclusion was that they're safer, and then the 3 subheadings were basically, no harmful chemicals, it's effective for quitting, and it doesn't produce any harmful byproducts. So it wasn't exactly the clearest.
Okay, so maybe, I might throw this out, that is a pretty lengthy first sentence you had.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you had just forgot about reading the details of that sentence, and just thought, okay, all right, safe. Electronic cigarettes are safer. That's the important thing I'm going to tell my audience. So as you're walking out here, maybe you're just like, electronic cigarettes safer, safer, safer. Look us in the eye, just tell us in your words, electronic cigarettes are safer. I want to explain why. then you can go for some more detailed explanation. That's how I might have clarified that, and that's how you might have overcome that nervousness or mistake. And also the other thing I would say, just reading. Like it looked like you were just reading, especially at the beginning, and a number of points. I feel like you, especially last week, when I talked about the way that reading can affect your audience, you said, well, of course I would never want someone to come to class and read something. I would just snatch the piece of paper out of their hand and say, I can read the paper instead of listening to you. So it takes your value away as a speaker when you are just reading something. And we want to hear from you, your perspective. Okay. Other comments? Yes?
Yeah, I was going to previously his startup was very soft. You didn't know really what, I believe, but it's not seriously. And also his eye contact was pretty much straight. Like it didn't go, like he didn't go around, didn't go around.
Yeah, and there might be some smokers out there. We need to help, right? I want to help you quit smoking.
But
look in your eyes.
Excellent, good detail.
A second?
Yeah, so I guess you can also take a sip of water before you go. I think there was a lot of time to just explore the technique.
Oh, okay, yeah, he's got to clear his throat a couple times. Okay, fair enough. Maybe what help? Sit up.
No conclusion doesn't cure and start, but I think his premises, the reasons he gave for it, not say that means everything regular speakers were pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. It was good, which is, I guess, made it more tragic that you missed the opportunity to clarify that conclusion again, because it was a very well organized essay. Okay.
Felt like it was more of a conclusion last than conclusion first.
Yeah. But he meant to do the conclusion first. He meant to do the conclusion first. Amol.
The beginning, like you said already, was a little bit, rocky start or whatever, but I thought that he recovered really well, and throughout it, he made more eye contact, looked less at the paper, and really finished out well, and instead of reading, he was more explaining and made it seem like he had more experience on the subject, more from the beginning towards the end.
I agree with that. So as he got warmed up,
exactly.
He drew us in with his personal understanding, personal experience. Yeah. Okay, so Sin Fu is going. Who wants to go next? All right. Okay. Let's get over it.
Okay, so thanks, Professor. Thanks, everyone. My name is Chen Fu. You can tell I'm an international student. I'm from China, and I speak English now so that you can understand me. And today I'm going to talk something about language. And what I'm going to say is that language is really important to cross-cultural communication. And I'll tell you why. Because first, nowadays people need to communicate with each other. People from different kind of country, different kind of cultural backgrounds. They need to communicate with each other for all kinds of purposes. For example, for business, for education, and even for love. But there's a problem. We speak different kind of language, right? So what do? Some people may say that we don't have to learn that kind of language because first, the world speaks English, right? No matter where you're from, no matter who you are, we speak English. And secondly, we got Google Translation. We got Lingos. And besides, if you're rich enough, you can hire a human translator or translators can help you. So probably you don't have to learn a foreign language. This something sense, but what I would like to say that, nevertheless, language is always very important to cross-cultural communication. And first, because people from different cultural backgrounds, they got different way of thinking. Right? So even they try to deliver this information, even the same information, they may deliver it in different ways. So here, by the way, does anybody here speak Japanese here? No, okay. By the way, I can speak Japanese, and my Japanese is a little bit better than English. Okay, so, a lot of Japanese, when they speak English, they would like to say a little bit. Okay, with me, a little bit. Because in Japanese, there's a word called chotto, which means a little bit according to the dictionary. But in a lot of situations, it means very or extremely, especially when Japanese trying to deliver some negative information or bad news. So here's the problem. If a Japanese friend say that, I'm a little bit upset. But here, probably he or she means that I'm so upset. So here's the problem. So if you don't understand the language, you can never understand what people really want to say. You can never understand the meaning behind their words. Okay, so this is the first point. Everybody with me? Good, okay. So there's another reason because, not everything can be translated. First, because, in different languages, not all words have one-to-one match. I'll give you an example. But actually, during English, it's better because there's a proverb called "curious killed the cat." Right? Everybody knows this proverb, right? But if we just translate directly from English to Chinese people may not understand that. What a poor cat. Why a cat? It doesn't make any sense, right? So here's the problem. People can never understand it if you just translate it directly. So in this case, we have to explain it, but it brings more cost. Okay, and second point is that we can translate meaning, but we can never translate feeling. And by the way, does anybody here know William Shakespeare? Okay, Jay, please tell me. Give me one sentence about who he is.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Chandra?
Okay, who is William Shakespeare?
He was, I know he was a writer and a playwright.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, he is really a great writer, one of the most important, the greatest writer in the world, right? But you know what? When I was in high school, actually it's middle school, so a little bit younger, and at that time my English is not that good. And so one time I picked up a poem of Shakespeare, but definitely in Chinese version, and I read it. You know what I'm feeling about this? I can understand the meaning, no problem, but what I'm trying to think about is that, is this the thing that one of the most greatest writer for? I don't think so. Oh, I can do that. But 3 years later, I went to university. And luckily, my English is a little bit better. Just I know that it's not bad. It's not good enough today. But it's a little bit better. So I picked up the English version of the same poem. And I read it. And I feel, wow, it's really beautiful. It's marvelous. How beautiful English it is. So why? Why the difference? Because we can translate meanings, but it is totally dead. It just means no feelings, no color. But here, only in its original language, you can feel it, the emotion, the feeling, and the beauty. So here I would like to say that we can translate meanings, but we can never translate the feelings. So, according to what I have mentioned, I would like to say that learning a foreign language might not be that necessary if you just want to have a basic communication or basic understanding of another people who is from different cultural background. But anyway, if you want to have better communication, if you want to have a smooth, efficient, cross-cultural communication, language is always very important. Thank you.
At the end, you kind of contradicted your conclusion when you said language isn't that important. I think language may not be that important. I know it was like an example, but
Yeah, I agree. Matt?
I mean, I thought he did a great job with it, especially the hand gestures, putting it together. The one thing that I had like criticism on was the amount of times you said 1, 2, 3. But it kind of got mixed up with like, wait, first point, second point, or did you after? But overall, like that was amazing. You kept it personal, which was the best thing. Like you gave examples of language.
Good set.
He kept asking the audience whether you are with me or not, and so he was getting the attention back.
Good. Engage with the audience.
And he asked questions to us so we could get involved.
Good. Yes, I'm all.
Yeah, I thought it was really important that he kept us engaged, and besides the fact that it might have been a little long, I thought that one important part that he missed was the fact that in the conclusion in the beginning, he mentioned cross-cultural, and in the end, he didn't mention cross-cultural, and I thought that was like the most important part. But
good. Blake?
I think he kept great eye contact and made smooth transition between topics, and he used examples that are familiar to us.
Great. Yeah, he had great body language, good stance, good eye contact. He had his notes right here. He referred to them a little bit, but for the most part, we got the sense he was just talking to us from the heart, so he engaged us that way. The conclusion was interesting. It was really interesting from my perspective of watching you, because it was crystal clear to you, and I think that made your presentation very powerful. It took me a minute to figure out what your conclusion was. I think you said at the beginning, language is important. So I didn't know what that meant, but you had a strong sense of what that meant, and we found out that that meant you should learn a foreign language. So maybe instead of saying language is important, you say it's important. I think you should have said it's important to learn a foreign language, and then your conclusion would have been clear to us. So, but I think that's interesting from us as communication students. Like, we saw that conviction he had in the way he was able to engage with us, because he knew exactly what he wanted to say and exactly the examples he wanted to use, but it took us a minute to catch up with that content. Good. It went on for a while. And I think that the reason why we became so conscious of the fact that it went on is because he knew what his point was. Once we got it, we're like, okay, boom, we got it. And he just kept talking about the same point. So it almost worked to your disadvantage, where you're like clear about this is the point, but you went at such length at that same point, kind of made us zone out a little bit. And then at the end, you came to the conclusion, it became obvious that you were summing up, and then as Matthew pointed out, to start your sum up, you contradicted. You said, if you don't want to, you don't have to. But, and then your conclusion itself took a little bit of time. So it's like, we thought we were coming to the end, threw us a curveball, and it's still dragging on. So we weren't able to just capitalize on that, this is the end, let us hear what you have to say. But I think that's very useful. The thing I want to really remember on that is just how powerful your eye contact and hand gestures were, and how engaged you were, because the conclusion was clear to you. Okay, let's move on. So we got Jay, and who wants to go next? Matthew, and then Mole. Go on.
I don't know how I feel going after 10 feet. Hi, my name is Jay, and I'm here to present to you guys about a question, actually. What do I do with this can? Aluminum can. Do I, A, throw it in the trash, or do I, B, recycle it? I can see many of you guys here probably guessed I'm talking about recycling, and in specific, everyone should recycle. Why should everyone recycle? 2 reasons that I want to go over today. Number 1, conserves energy. Number 2, reduces pollution. Going on to number 1, conserves energy. That one can, if I was to recycle it, I save the same amount of energy that it takes to power a TV for 3 hours. So that can, and another way of thinking this is this can, if I did not recycle it, to mine the virgin materials to make this can, it takes 90 to 95% more energy to mine and make this can than if I was to recycle it and then just repurpose it. It goes out on the market in 60 days. Number 2, reduces pollution. I know some people here are supply chain people, hopefully. It reduces the process in the supply chain. If I throw that away, it actually causes, we have to rebuild it. So now I have a company that's actually going to go and mine it. So they got to mine it. They got to transport to the factory, and then the factory's got to make it. Mining operation takes gas, makes smog, carbon dioxide, pollution. Number 2, the transportation company transport the minerals. That took pollution, because that takes gas, burns gas, smog. Number 3, that factory's making smog. If I recycled it, it would have just gone right back out. There's no factory that makes smog. So in conclusion, the 2 main reasons why I want you guys to recycle is 1, it conserves energy. Number 2, reduces pollution. And that's it. Thank you.
I'm definitely going to do a better job recycling now. It was a clear intro, conclusion, and great, interesting examples that I think kept everyone engaged.
Jen, say your name again for me. No. Yes, what's your name again? Rajesh. Sorry, Rajesh.
He started off very strong because he used the prop. I mean, then he really engaged the crowd in the beginning.
Yeah.
That is something which is different, I think, using a prop and then engaging the crowd.
Yes, he used the crowd, and notice he didn't use any notes. Now, how did that add to his performance? It helped with his body language, it helped his confidence, and it was all like, eye contact was good. We just got the sense like this is what he believes. And he doesn't need notes to tell us. 2 simple reasons. And he was able to construct a speech effectively that way.
It was concise and stuff on it, so it kind of hit home to follow.
Yes, yes.
He also worked the room a bit, walked around, like close the crowd, so.
Yeah, that was powerful. Good, good, good.
And he mentioned a lot of numbers, which makes his very strong.
Yeah, he fit those numbers into his clear framework. Blake?
He was pretty lively and energetic and seemed genuinely interested. You know, he did make me think whether he were cyclists.
Yeah, genuine. We want the real him. Yeah, he brought that to us. Fantastic.
I thought that his voice projected very well across the whole room. So I thought, you know, it wasn't too loud, but it wasn't too soft. It was just right. And I saw that like anytime he used like 1, 2, 3, like he did the 1, 2, 3. So I thought that was something different.
Yeah, that was good. It was I hesitate to say it because it was so good, but it's almost too much here and being out there a little bit too much. But you know, I'm sure you can work that out. You could just go back to 1, back to 2, back to 3, or you could even like use those hand gestures if you're pointing at people. Point 1, this side of the room, point 2, might be a little variety to spruce it up for us. Okay, good. All right, so next person is Matthew, and then who's after that? Amol? Okay, and Priya's after that.
So, who here likes to stab themselves? So, as you are a group of diabetics, you come here to find an alternative, right? So, I'm here to tell you today that there is one. And there is an inhaled insulin called Afrezza that is guaranteed to make you want to take it more. That's guaranteed to reduce any pain or injury you have from regular injectable insulins that you've all been taking, I'm sure, because you guys are compliant, right? And it is going to improve your outcome. So again, it's going to increase the likelihood of taking it, reduce your injuries, and improve your outcomes. So let me tell you, the first one, how often have you gone to a restaurant and your mealtime insulin has come along and you're afraid to pull out a needle and stab yourself because everyone's going to come and watch you, right? So why not just keep it in a purse, keep it in your pocket? I mean, it's the size probably about half a pencil, and you can just take this out and inhale it. And it's no different than any other asthma inhaler or any type of COPD from obstruction of your lungs or any sort. There's no stigma involved, period. So you're going to want to take this. It'll make you more likely to take it. The second one is to reduce your injury. There's only 3 or 4 injection sites you can take your insulin at. And you have to inject yourself at least 3 times a day with your food. I know I eat more actually, so I'm going to say 5 times a day. So I'm going to assume that getting to the site is going to be annoying because you have to stab yourself at the same spot. It becomes sore over time. With the inhaled insulin, you're just breathing. We all like to breathe, right? So we're breathing. So that's going to be an easy way to cut any pain or soreness from your life, period. It's done. It's over. And lastly, we have improved outcomes. So when you take your insulin, some people here, I'm sure, feel tired or fatigued because that's low blood sugar. That's a major side effect of regular insulin. Well, I'm here to tell you that this Afrezza inhaler will decrease your chances of hypoglycemia, which is your low blood sugar. It will wipe it out. No more possible hospital visits, no more fatigue after you're using it. It'll be just a better, you'll feel the energy. I'm sure you have kids that'll take it from you anyway, so there you go, save it for something else. So I want you guys all, if that's not enough, come talk to me because there's more. I just want to keep it short for you guys. I'm telling you that you should go to your doctor tomorrow because Afreeza will make you feel better, reduce any pain and soreness, and want you to take it and control your diabetes.
I think you made it very personal. You talked to his audience, you made sure that they knew the value of doing like what he wanted you to do. So it was good to make that his audience.
Yeah, that was audience that have to cut themselves and engage just with that question, or stab themselves. Who likes stabbing themselves? Made it about them. Fantastic. Yeah.
That initial question caught our attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
They kept us engaged.
Just
He walks around, so that leads into the conflict.
okay. Good. Good. Walking around. I was actually going to give him the note there was a little bit too much pacing, but I see both. Anyone want to weigh in on that? Who thinks this walking around helped? Who thinks it was distracting? Rajesh?
It did help, like walking around did help, but then it was kind of slow in the pacing. So somehow, the first point was strong, second was strong, and third point a little bit slow or anything. So you kind of lose a little bit, but not completely. But I think the pacing was a little slow.
Oh, so it's verbal pacing slowed down. Okay, so it's verbal pacing slowed down. Yeah. Okay.
With more energy.
Okay. Yeah, so what I'd say about pacing and movement is good. I like movement with a purpose. So maybe you'll start on one side, move to the other side of the room, and stop, talk for a while, and then move back to the other side of the room. And I think that is less visually distracting. It also gives us that easygoing relationship that you get with movement. And it also might have helped keep your pacing on track. Because I do think that pacing decreased towards the end. And I saw that in just a little bit of the just more aimless movement. Perhaps there's a relationship there. Other comments?
I feel like he explained what everything was thoroughly because sometimes your audience might not know exactly what he's referring to using terms like hypoglycemia. So he kind of thought we were patients, and that kind of dumbs it down to say, oh, it's low blood sugar, not just hypoglycemia.
Yeah.
And that helps understand a lot.
Yeah. Good explanation, good opening question, good engagement, good eye contact, good hand gestures. The only thing I would say is the pacing distracted me. Walking that distracted me. All right. You can make your comment while you're walking out.
All right. So I thought that he did a good job in making everyone feel that he was an expert in the field.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about whether I heard the conclusion in the beginning, but he definitely restated it at the end, and I thought it was overall good.
Absolutely, I agree.
So my name's Amal. So as all of us are students, when we return to school, we face the important decision of deciding whether or not to live on campus. The most important factors to take into consideration when making this decision is related to time management and productivity. So the option of living on campus will provide the most competitive edge to all students in terms of time management and productivity. First, as when you live on campus, traveling to classes can take a lot of time, whether you're using train, cars, any other sorts of transportation means. And this time can be spent a lot more productively, such as working with campus resources or preparing for your oral presentation in your business communications class, or any other aspects like that. As we all know, that's going to increase your productivity by being close to classes and being close to the campus resources. Next, when you live on campus, it's a different feel with the students that are around you who are on campus as well. You have a different interaction with them, and you kind of grow together, and you can build good study habits as well as utilize your time and work together on different things that you may not have the chance to do if you were living off campus. Lastly, living on campus gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of developing your own schedule because you are near all of the campus resources. So I don't have to tell you guys in terms of time management, but having a more flexible schedule definitely gives you bigger convenience. It allows you set your own schedule and not have to do things when you could be doing something else instead, such as working in your group meetings or attending a presentation or whatnot. Yeah, so overall, main factors to take into consideration when you're choosing whether or not to live on campus is related to time management and productivity. And choosing to live on campus is going to give you the biggest competitive edge, and I recommend that every student should make this choice.
Excellent. All right.
I think it was perfect, right? We started off well, summed up really well, and he made me realize that I took a wrong decision on
They stated the conclusion in the beginning. We just said that we just asked the question of whether we should stay on campus or not, but we even mentioned what we thought we should do.
Right. So in the beginning was I'm going to discuss on campus versus off campus, and by the end you should definitely live on campus. So yeah, some switching around could have been helpful, especially if the important takeaway was you should live on campus. I'm going to tell you why to live on campus. Here's 1, 2, 3. Mike.
He was very poised and up there and good eye contact. I think he keep the whole.
Okay, yeah. So some good open body language, some good gestures. I feel like there are a couple things that prevented his perfect engagement. There were a couple things physicality that were going on. There was an upper body slam like this, and there was a lot of filler words. And I'm trying to think about why that happened. I think maybe it was just some nervousness and perhaps a desire to adhere strictly to your outline, strictly to the things that you wanted to say. So I got the sense you're up here thinking, all right, there's these things that I want to say, I want to make sure I got them and say them. To help you get more fluent with that, I might suggest a couple things. One, just more practice. Two, I might, maybe just a cue card with your outline would have helped you with that. I ordinarily would prefer no cue card, but sometimes a cue card can help, and I think this is one of those situations where a cue card would have helped. Because if you had those 4 things that you wanted to say, and you knew where they were, and you had that card in front of you, you could have concentrated on, here's point 1, let me just use that great physicality, that great connection I have with the audience, explain point 1. And I don't have to worry in my head about what point 2 is, and be tempted to do a nervous gesture or use a filler word because I'm trying to think of the next thing to say. Make sense? Great.
I was going to say, you did have great eye contact, which made the other suggestions to all the more emphasized when you were thinking about it.
Yes.
This is how when you were thinking of something to say.
Yeah. So, and so my answer to that is a cue card could have helped you, or just not worrying about it. If you forget the next point, then you forget the next point. But while I'm in point 2, I'm going to be looking at you and explaining point 2 how important it is that you have this extra time. When I get to the end of that, I might say, gosh, what was point 3? Can anyone help me out? Or let me think for a minute. You know what, actually, I changed my mind. There's only 2 points. I forgot the 3rd point. Could have done something like that.
I feel like maybe if he paced from side to side, that could have been the time where you can actually think about what the next point is.
Okay. Yeah, you can use a little, and also that might have decreased his tendency to sway if he, puts that nervous energy into one clear walk across the room.
I actually planned on doing
Good. All right, Bree. Who wants to go after Bree? Seth. And Blake will go after Seth.
the time to meet with me today. I know annual performance reviews are coming up next week, and I wanted to take this opportunity to review some of my accomplishments and request a 5% raise in my salary. For the past year, I have been working with one of our major clients at their headquarters, and I know this was a crucial placement because as the only consultant working at that office, I was the face of our company. Judging by the positive feedback that I've gotten from you, as well as the client, I'd say that I've exceeded those set expectations. I've built a trusting relationship with the client, and they value my input, and because of this, they brought me into several of their key meetings where I've identified their needs that we could meet with our resources. So as you know, Alicia and Betsy were both placed on consulting projects with the client based on my recommendation. This represents additional revenue for our firm. This brings me to my last point as well, which is I've been appointed to train and manage these new resources, not just ours, but the clients. I put in extra hours because of this to make sure that I get my job done, as well as give them ample support to get their job done. So I have many other reasons which I'm happy to discuss, but because of the ones that I've stated, great performance and feedback, additional revenue for our firm, and the expansion of my training and managerial responsibilities, I believe I've earned a 5% raise, and I hope you consider these points when you make your final decisions.
She deserves 5%.
So, I think she justified in such a manner that you give her 10% of it. It was a nice pitch for her.
Yeah, that was a great pitch, a great presentation. Go ahead, Blake.
I thought it was very formal and a great way to summarize your main points of what you're trying to communicate across, and explain the accomplishments of what you've done, not, oh, I need it because I need it. You know, like, yeah,
I really need one.
I'm a really great guy.
Alicia.
I think just because you're both sitting next to each other too, I think it's very interesting to find that you were giving a more formal presentation, like you said. So you're very poised, you were very, like, as a matter of fact, and just smiled, but didn't interact too much, which was good for that, like, kind of presentation. But like for yours, for an example, you're giving more of a fun one, like this is what I want you to do. So your sleeves are rolled up, it's a little more like casual, and I think that was like, I don't know, just because you're sitting next to each other, maybe think of it, but I think that's kind of nice, like nice to say.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Kara.
She was very calm, peaceful. She was nervous, and at the same time was very assertive. So when you get a raise, you know, let's get her that you want to get it.
Yeah, I thought her presentation style was very effective. She was humble. She asked at the beginning, I'm going to request a 5% raise, and she did a little sort of smirk. And I'm trying to decide what I think about that. I think that's fine. You need to let your audience absorb that. You need to say something that you'll be able to say when the pressure's on. Like you may plan it out beforehand. I'm going to confidently, clearly say, this is the raise I want, but when that person is sitting in front of you, you may need to just give yourself a way to relate to that person and deal with that. This feels a little awkward asking, but I'm going to ask anyway. So I felt like that was a good technique. Harvey?
Yeah, I agree. I think that just shows that she was humble rather than arrogant, saying I've done so much and I want that 5% raise. She was being humble and requesting the 5% raise.
Yeah, and then also think about the way this was planned out. Our performance reviews are next week. I just want to give you a heads up before our performance review that you should consider these things. And I understand, of course, the decision is yours and there's a process, but I'm just taking initiative here and getting you at the right time when you're thinking about it to give you these succinct points. Great, Michael.
Excellent presentation with details. How, and just to sharpen it up, what do you suggest? Because I'm seeing a lot of people saying forwards and stuff like that. Just asking, how do you stop from doing that?
It's awareness, practice, and that practice is often eye contact. When you're looking into someone's eyes, you become more aware of the content and the value it adds to